Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga confounded allies and confused foes when he shook hands with President Uhuru Kenyatta on the steps of Harambee House back in 2018. But if the proof of the pudding is in the eating, then the test of the handshake would be the passing of the Building Bridges Initiative proposals into law in 2021, making next year a do-or-die year for the ODM leader. Are Kenyans ready for constitutional changes, or will that initiative be overtaken by a pandemic still ravaging the country and a wobbly economy that can't take further strain? Well, we went to Bondo to speak to Raila Odinga at his Opoda Farm, and here is that report. The helicopter carrying former Prime Minister Raila Odinga touched down at his 150-acre Opoda Farm at least 30 minutes before our interview was set to begin, a sign of a man keen to keep time despite what must be a grueling schedule. Good morning, Honorable Raila Odinga. If all had gone according to plan, we may have been discussing the outcome of the Building Bridges Initiative referendum with the ODM leader, but that electoral process was put on hold after the COVID-19 disruption led to the scaling down of all public gatherings. Raila invites us into his home where Ida Odinga is preparing to leave for a public function.
Good morning.
Hello. But before she exits, she insists that we must at least take some tea before we begin the interview. It is over this meal where we ask Raila how he kept fit during the lockdown, and he quickly departs from the table and returns dressed in football-ready gear. Sadly, I had not carried my own kit. How would you say your 2020 has been like?
Just like any other person in Kenya. 2020 has been a fairly challenging period for all of us. Yes.
Beyond Corona, would you say what are the major challenges? What has been your lowest moment?
Remember, I went for an operation in Dubai when I was completely immobile for about 3 months. I think those are my low moments.
The Gor Mahia patron and Arsenal diehard reveals a little about his football interests and exploits.
I was always a striker. You know, I used to play number 11, the wing, and alternately number 9. So that's where I've been.
Once Raila is suitably warmed up, we sit down to talk about the state of the nation. I begin by asking him about the unrest recently witnessed in the public health sector, which has led to a series of strikes.
These are now the consequences, but address the fundamental issues. One is the issue of the state of the economy, you see, which is in a very sorry state, okay? Secondly, it's the issue of corruption and lack of accountability in the country. These are the causative factors of what the mess that we have. And I would say it is not only in the health sector. So we need to have a holistic approach to these issues. Yes, doctors are suffering, and I've said they have a case. Even the nurses. I was misquoted at the time.
Can I remind you the statement, and you can tell me, you said be more understanding. We're in a crisis at the moment. We are also in a die-hard situation as far as the economy is concerned. The doctors took an oath to protect life. How then do they justify downing their tools when people are dying? Were those your words?
Those are my words, and I'm not running away from them.
You still hold the same view?
I hold the view that, yes, there are crises, doctors are having a problem, but I've said, if you want to protest against the government, your government is not being hurt by you downing your tools. It is the people you're supposed to treat, those who desire, who require treatment, who are the victims. They should not down their tools. That should be completely the last resort. Negotiate with the government. At the same time, I've urged the government to behave more responsibly. The economy is in dire straits because if productivity goes low, the government cannot even collect revenue. Revenue collection has gone down, and that's where the salaries come from. So we have to be realistic because the government has also got other obligations, like things like debts cannot be postponed, have to be paid, okay?
On the back of what you've just said, speaking about the economy, some economists opine that COVID found Kenya in a tight situation financially. A lot of Kenya's revenue caught up in expensive loans, especially to Asian lenders, for large infrastructure projects. Has Kenya achieved value for those large infrastructure projects? What do you discuss that with the president and those in leadership when you talk to them?
Yes, I mean, we've discussed a number of issues with the president. And I know where the rain began to beat them, but I really don't want to answer for them. I know where the rain began to beat them. You see, they came into power against a background of ICC. And when
it sounds like you're making excuses for them.
No, I'm not making excuses. I'm just giving you what I think maybe causative factors for the problem, where the things started to go wrong. They're not able to pay proper attention to the structures which we had put in place with Kibaki that time. And in that process, the checks and balances got eroded. I'll give you an example of the SGR. It was our project. We conceived it. We designed it. We awarded the contract. And then when they came in, they cancelled the contract. They re-advertised it and re-awarded it, but at grossly inflated price. And then we had awarded it at $2.7 billion. It went to 3.5, then to 4, eventually to 4.3. Okay? That's just one example.
Will anyone ever be held accountable for those sins of omission or commission?
I don't know. That is now the responsibility of the Jubilee government.
As the opposition leader, isn't that something you should be pushing for? You clearly are very confident about what you said.
I've been pushing for this, but you've seen what has now become the norm. And the Jubilee government, when somebody who is culpable is being arrested, the word is that he's being persecuted because he's supporting so-and-so, okay? And these people then get scot-free. But they're arrested, they're taken to court. Quickly you find a battery of lawyers baying for the court. And within no time, bail is a fundamental right, and that is given a bail. See? So you reach a stage where you become a hero if you are charged with corruption in the country. See? And the media hails you as a hero. You run around as a hero. You are walking around with all the exhibit. You are an exhibit of corruption. But you are a good hero. You are a liberator. So that's how low we have stopped as a country.
And I think you're doing a good job of painting an accurate picture of where economy is at that time, which is why I would then ask, can this same economy then manage a referendum and an election 2 years apart?
The expenses for doing those things, like a referendum, even an election, are actually peanuts to the government.
Some would say doctors' salaries are peanuts as well. You said it in 2017. Let me read your quote, Honorable Odinga. You said in 2017, you know, another doctor strike was happening. You said the money the doctors are demanding compared to what has been looted by government is peanuts. So then doctors' salaries was peanuts. Now you're telling us the cost of BBI and election is peanuts. Help us understand that.
Yeah, no, but of course I can cause it to you. It's not just out of thin air. You see, I've been telling people, you need to do comparative analysis of what elections cost. You see, in the US, they've just finished the elections. The cost is actually 40 to 50 US cents per ballot. Call it 50 US cents per ballot. In some European countries, it is 70 cents per ballot. Most expensive, usually $1 per ballot. It's only in Africa where the costs are usually inflated. Some countries it's $2. In a place like Nigeria, it goes to $5. But in Kenya, it is the highest, $7 a ballot. Okay? If you just came down to $1 per ballot, for example, and you have, like last time you had 19 million registered voters, call it 20 million, and $1 per ballot, that will be $20 million. Okay? $20 million equivalent to 2 billion Kenyan shillings. Okay? Yet they spent 42 billion shillings to do that election. That's why I'm taking issue with Chebukati when he's saying he needs 14 billion shillings to do a referendum. All that money is just going to people's pockets. Okay?
Is 2 billion the only cost, though, Honorable Odinga? Talking about civic education, all the rallies that would take place in the run-up to it, is that a fair estimate of the total cost of a referendum?
This is what I'm telling you, the total cost. Even the US, that is what it is. That's what it is. Okay? It doesn't need to cost much more than that. So the other costs there are basically things they're adding. And that's why you see the helicopters which are running around.
Let me take you back to IBC. It sounds like you have no faith in them as currently constituted to oversee that referendum. Is that your position?
That is a subject for another day. I don't want to be distracted.
You don't want to get into that?
I don't want to get into that.
I ask you that because one of the big issues that has come up with the handshake and the BBI is electoral violence, disputed elections. How will BBI guarantee that in 2022, if one camp is aggrieved, we won't have incidents like we have had in the past? Will BBI sort that?
No, we need to have transparency in doing elections. Like, you know, what you say that the results as announced at the polling stations should be the final results.
How does BBI assist with that? And let me ask you why I asked this. In 2017, you introduced some new lingo into the political sphere, vifaranga via computer. In fact, you said many who had been elected were products of some algorithm and not properly elected by the people on the ground. In 2022, are you telling us, Honorable Odinga, that with BBI, hakutakuwa na vifaranga via computer?
This is why we are trying to reorganize the IBC, so that you have an IBC which is responsive to the needs of the country and which can facilitate a transparent electoral process. That the only elections where there were no issues as to the correctness of results was the one of 2002. And why was that? Because the Electoral Commission at that time was a compromise of political parties. The IPPG, you know, formula. Experience in other parts of the world has shown that If they are nominated by political parties, they counter-check each other. You see, they counter-check each other. They cannot conspire to do this because there's nobody in the world who is neutral. Everybody who is resident in a country has his or her preference. So even if in the world, if you give the Pope the ballot and he goes into the box there, he will vote for somebody.
We've already started wading into the BBI discussion, so I just have a few more questions for you there. And I want to talk a bit about the urgency of the BBI amendments. Why must they happen before 2022?
Because some of them will have...
Kenyans agree to them, that is.
Yeah, because some of them will have an impact on the elections of 2022. Even, for example, the issue of the gender, the gender parity or the two-thirds rule. How else are you going to do it unless you pass the BBI? Because if you leave things the way they are, and wait for 2022, you go for an election, you don't get the two-thirds rule, you still will not have complied. And you have also not removed that provision in the Constitution. So there are several reasons why we must do the BBI before the next general election.
Your critics say the rush is suspicious, that there's what we are being told at the surface level, but there's a lot of behind-the-scenes scheming that isn't very clear to Kenyans. How do you respond to those who say it can wait for 2022?
Ask them to give concrete examples.
State of the economy, the pandemic.
Elections are going to come. I've just told you that what we need to do a referendum is little compared to us not doing it now. But the good question you want to ask is there a valid reason why it should be done now rather than with the next general elections? The answer is yes. See, these people who are talking about doing a referendum, the general elections, are being very economical with the truth, with the facts. You see, ask them where it has ever been done. You're having 6 ballot papers for the MCA, the MP, the women rep, the senator, the governor, the president. Then you now move on to now the referendum. Again, then referendum, you now have 5 or 10 questions for an illiterate voter. One voter will take minimum of 1 hour to go through that, because they have to be coached to say yes or no.
So for you it is...
So when I see the deputy president talking about Wakenya wamelewa, Wakenya wamesoma, nini kama wanaweza kuchagua watu, kwa nini yeye hawezi kujibu? He is not being factual. I mean, it's just playing to the gallery. But practically, it is not possible. It's not possible, and he knows it.
I'm sure you're at a point where you're making your New Year's resolutions. One of the resolutions is to, champion for the BBI, something that is close to your heart. What happens, Honorable Odinga, if you wake up in August 2021 and the country has said no to the BBI? What next?
Oega, if the country says no, they will have passed their verdict. Okay? So the world will not stop moving because the country has said no. Okay? So maybe very different reasons why the people will be saying no. But I know Kenyans. Kenyans know what is good for them and what is not good for them. So I believe that Kenyans, given opportunity, will make the right choice.
Which is yes, in your view.
I have a confidence in Kenyan people to make the right choice at the right time.
Let's now look at the other scenario, which is if the BBI passes. We recently had KANU Chair Gideon Moi, Senator, stating that, and I want to get the right quote, he said politicians who backed the BBI will form a winning coalition geared towards 2022. When a statement like that is made, is that not a clear indicator that BBI is not just about amending the law, but it's also a Trojan horse to get certain people into the leadership of the country in 2022?
That is his own personal view at that time. It is not something that people have sat down and consulted over. And sometimes the media gets so overcarried with the remarks made.
We take the words of politicians very seriously.
You see, I don't think that has been a meeting where it was discussed and a resolution was made that we were going to form a coalition. That may be a logical consequence, but as of now, there has been no discussion.
So directly, BBI is not your Trojan horse, and I hope you get what I mean by Trojan horse. You know very well that Greek tale. It's not your Trojan horse into the State House in 2022?
Greek, the horse that carries soldiers.
Yes.
I understand very well.
The BBI is not the horse carrying you into State House in 2022?
No. We are not, the people are overly concerned about 2022. People are having waking nightmares about 2022. I'm not losing sleep because of 2022. Okay? And people think that State House is ordained for them, that they had promises which want to be fulfilled. The State House is for the people of Kenya. For me and the President Uhuru is to deliver the BBI. Once that is done, then Kenyans now will be able to make their own choice going forward.
Uhuru, as per the Constitution, the President will retire in 2022. He will leave office. How do you respond to those who say that you as well should retire from politics when he retires?
You know, we are two different animals. And if I want to retire from politics, nothing stops me from retiring from politics. But I will make my decision myself when the right time comes. So I don't want somebody to tell me who should retire and who should not retire. I want the Kenyan people eventually, I will tell the Kenyan people today I'm tired, I'm taking a walk, and I will be an observer in politics. See, so, but I say that for now I want to deliver the BBI, and thereafter Kenyans will decide as we go forward. Circumstances will decide. I will not want to talk about 2022. We agreed with my brother Uhuru Kenyatta, we don't want to talk about 2022.
Should we be surprised to see your name on the ballot paper, candidate Raila Odinga?
I've said so many times, I don't want to talk about 2022. Okay. Would you please not repeat that question again?
I don't repeat that question again.
Yeah.
Maybe the question then I would ask is, the fears that some of your supporters have that the system would use you and then part ways with you close to the 2022.
I've said that I don't want to talk about 2022. You're repeating the same question in different words, okay?
Okay, let me ask. That concludes the formal part of the interview, and Honorable Raila then takes us on an extensive tour of the farm that he shares with his brother, Dr. Oburu Odinga. Wow, one of them. The latest addition to the farm, these majestic long-horned animals are Ankole cows, usually found in East and Central Africa.
This is the sheep.
Oh, yeah.
But now they've been released.
Yeah. Also, Raila's farm now boasts of sheep and goats, in addition to the chickens that provide food for one of Kenya's longest-serving leaders.
They drink water here.
It seems that east or west, home is best for Raila Amolo Odinga.